Too early in the year.
Okay, folk, thank you for that. Look, welcome to the Finance and Insurance Committee. Great to see all you folk here and those of you who join us online. I appreciate everybody being here. We have thank you Ian, a good agenda, and it's been useful with our start of the workshop, and just to note, my key is to make certain that we finish with our workshop at the end as well. I will be keen to keep a reasonable pace, given some commitments, including my own, late or mid-afternoon. So we will just trot through in an appropriate way, bearing in mind there is still good information. There's good information here today, and there are some significant decisions to make. You folk know all the administrative arrangements here better than I do, but sufficient to say that we are recording this. It is a public meeting at this stage. So look, for apologies, some of them aren't really apologies, but just to note, Margie is coming, but she'll be coming in on Teams, but will be late. Julie, you're on Teams, great to see you. Don is going to be late, but will be here. Derek, great to see you on Teams as well. I think that probably is the primary bit that we've got. So to the extent that they're just noting where people are or apologies, I'll move that. Thank you, Christine. Put the motion all over in favour. Please say aye. Those against is carried. Thank you very much.
But I was just noting that I may have to leave early because.
Okay. Can we add that to the list? I'm glad you moved it then, or second. It doesn't matter. You'll work out who did the right thing there. I'm not certain I did the right thing, but we've got it there. I haven't been told of any leaves of absence. Are there any matters coming up that people need to note their interests? No? Haven't been involved. There's no extraordinary or urgent items. So we come to the minutes of our last meeting, which was the 26th of August, not that long ago. You'll recall that related to, I zoomed in, that related to the LTP. So I'll move from the chair that we take those minutes as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Paul. Accuracy, corrections, that's what you thought we did at that meeting? Did. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Haven't been informed of anybody wishing to make use of the public forum. So we go straight to item 7.1 on page 19 of your agendas. It's into the actual program, and it's either going to be Anne or Rachel. I'm not sure who's going to speak to me.
Rachel will delegate to me.
Rachel will delegate. Good, I like that. That's a good way to take it. Good start to the day, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman, councillors. So just presenting the work plan that we set back on the 7th of August 2024 for the financial year ended 30th of June 2025. So pretty much we're on track with what we've planned. We've got an additional 2 reports on this agenda that you'll have seen: commercial infrastructure, just the forestry harvest plan, and just an update on the strategic property purchase investigations. They've been added to our public excluded. We've also just had to move that 25-26 annual plan timetable and the self-assessment check. We're just going to move that to our October meeting, just a bit of timing issues in there, just trying to get our LTPs and everything done. And the financial report, we had one in there for this meeting, but of course that would only be on the July report. We don't generally prepare a July report. We try to concentrate on getting that annual report done, given it's the start of the year, so that one we just noted. The last one, though, that I did, which was a mistake. So in the July 3rd council meeting, we said then we were going to receive an update with more information and reporting regarding SDC's holding in MSTL. And of course, I clearly forgot that, and it should have been a report on this agenda. So what we're going to do is just add to this timeline council organisation reporting that needs to be undertaken by the council on a regular basis. So we're going to add it to the agenda and put it onto your plan. Okay. So my apologies for that. That's an oversight.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate that, and thank you for acknowledging that we've missed something which had been planned. But I also like the way you're planning to approach it going forward, which is good. Questions, comments for Anne? Yes, Rob.
Just a question about the people capability quarterly update, whether it's worth putting into the timeline as well. we sort of discussed doing that through F&A.
Yep, good. We can add it on somewhere. I'll let Ian contemplate that as to when, but it would be logical to me. I have raised the prospect of, and it's going to be dependent on Rob's agreement, any good risk committee should always be reviewing this profile environment. And I think from my reading elsewhere, getting close to time to do it for a couple of reasons. One is you have adopted your LTP, and we need to check what of our risk profile will affect the achievement of those objectives. I'm also conscious that the future, and as we almost said our LTP is only good for 1 year, didn't we? I mean, it was. I wouldn't want to necessarily acknowledge that as being the case, but the challenge I've seen it having a lot of longevity is challenging, just given the current dynamic political environment in which we're operating. And I'd like to also suggest as good value, because I know you started some initial strategy thinking, to think through what's going to happen over the next 15 months and matching that with our risk profile. So with Rob's leave, I'll have a discussion with him somewhere and like Chris's arm to see if I get some more of the time just to work through a bit of be careful, a structured look at our risk profile, which we need to do relatively soon, as long as it can fit everybody's timetable and needs. I think that would be useful. So it's not on the agenda at the moment, but I'll as long as we have to, I'll try and work with Jane, Rob and Anne to find a suitable time. Okay, with that, can we go to the motion, please, which is that we receive and we note the amendments to the work plan. I'll move in a second, please. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Sarah. The motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against is carried. Brilliant. Can we go to item 7.2, which is the year-end performance report, please? Okay, Robin, how are you?
Thank you.
Over the LTP.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's meant to be a joke. I hope you. No, I can dig a hole. In your hands, Robin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Finance and Assurance Committee. I'm presenting the year-end performance report for 1 July 2023 to 30 June 2024. The purpose of the report is to provide the committee with information on the performance of the 23-24 year, and the committee is being asked to receive the report and to note the performance against the KPI targets in the context provided for the outcomes. I will take the report as being read. Attached to the report is the results of all the 58 KPIs for the 23-24 year. There is a total of 40 KPIs that met their targets for the year, or 69%. 14 KPIs that did not meet targets, or 24%. And there were 4 KPIs, or 7%, that have not been measured. Now, this is due to timing. 2 of those unmeasured KPIs are from the roading activity, and they are on a biannual measure due in 2025. And also, due to staffing at Emergency Management Southland, there's been an impact on the measurement of our emergency services targets. An email recently indicated planning is in place to complete the survey for KPI 10.2, the percentage of households that have an emergency plan, and this will be reported to the committee once the survey is completed. 10.1, the number of Southland communities covered by a community response plan that have been reviewed within the three-year period. The KPI was actually met in 21-22 year, with a total of 27 plans reported as being reviewed. There was no further information on the plans for this year, so as soon as that information comes through, I can update the committee. The report has a number of graphs that visually represent the results as well, and in graph 3 on page 26 of the agenda demonstrates the results across the past 3 years of the 21-31 LTP. The Community Leadership Group has consistently reached its targets set in the 21-31 LTP and have added KPIs into the 24-34 LTP to extend what's being measured, including transparency of council agendas and the timing where appropriate around the release of reports. The Community Services Group, which has 10 targets set, and that group consists of community services, community facilities, water facilities, waste management, and Stewart Island electricity, or CIASA, have increasingly met the set KPIs across the 3 years, and they've also made some changes for the 24-34 LTP. The Stormwater Group, all DIA required measurements, have met the set targets over the past 2 years. There was 14 KPIs that did not meet targets, the targets set for the 23-24 year. These KPIs are discussed in the body of the report, and there are staff here this morning should the committee have any further questions. The results of this report will be used as part of our annual report for 23-24. I'll hand back to you, Mr. Chairman, for any feedback and questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Appreciate that, and a very clear report. I found this possibly the most interesting report, actually. So, folk, I'm open to firstly questions of Robin or comments. So, Paul and then
I just noticed on page 27 the referring to the high leakage rates in the water supply. So there was some where I think that was perhaps more of a problem where there was stock water systems, but are we tracking down these leaks?
I'll ask Ray to come and join me. Thank you.
Good morning. In answer to your question, we are carrying out generally annual leak detection testing on the schemes that we believe are the ones that have the leakage problem. Just to put everyone in the picture so they're aware of what we're up against in my department, we report on 11 urban water schemes, 2 of which are rural, which is Lumsden, Balfour and Eastern Bush Otahu Flat. We've got 167 metered supplies, which constitutes 2.3% of the total connections that we have in the network. We've got 7,056 supplies that are not metered, so that means we can't tell how much water is going into any of those properties. The estimated cost for universal metering, which is the only way that we can really get around it, is around the $5 million mark. And the total water that I have to deal with to try and get answers to the questions in the KPIs is 95.6% of the water we produce, or 3.5 million cubic metres per annum. So I've gone into another phase because this is so rubbery and because all the numbers there's no locked in answer, there's no set amount. I am reporting water loss in the network as improving this year. And I still can't get anywhere near the per capita consumption that comes down to what I would term to be a reasonable amount for a network such as ours. We are very diversified. And it's running around 970 litres per person per day. But that's taking into account that one of my largest users of water, which is Lumsden Balfour scheme, is predominantly dairy cows, and they drink a lot more water than you do. So, yeah. So I'm dealing with these. My next proposal will be to my manager to say we need to have someone externally look at the way we're doing it. It's not sort of just guessing a number. It's a significant number of calculations go into it, etc. To overview once again to see if there is a better way of doing it. Until we get universal metering, the answer is no, but that's where it's at.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions. I've got data for Africa. And this has been the same way since we started doing DIA reporting. It gets so now I report 2 numbers, but I have a 2-page backup sheet that gives what the numbers could be, low to high, and they vary significantly, and any clarifications required. So,
great, Christine.
Thank you. It was a very interesting response. I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight environmental services, which is showing a decrease in KPIs, but acknowledge the amazing to turn the situation around.
Thank you, Christine. Any comment you'd like to make on that one, maybe? I can hear from you later as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, we've had a bit of a battle. There is an incorrect figure in the report when it comes to the amount of RMA applications meeting time in August. It actually went up to 85.8%. So, in the words of my CEO, the worm has definitely turned, and you can see on the line we're moving up on there. On the resource consent side, the team are just doing fantastically well, and that will continue to improve. On the building consent side, again, they pulled it out of the fire, and you can see that the level of consent being processed on time there is now at 95%. I think the issue with KPIs, they should be challenging and they should be difficult to meet, but they shouldn't be setting you up to fail. And I've got some real concerns, to be honest, about having a 100% requirement on both resource consents and building consents, because it isn't realistic. The problem we have a tyranny of no control of the number of applications that come in. Thanks to some skilled predecessors to me, we now have a panel of people who can help us with consulting. However, that doesn't necessarily we're going to be able to push these things through as quickly as we need to. And we're going to get the odd ones going to fall out the sides, and that's the nature of the beast. And I will come back to the committee with a suggestion on KPIs which are realistic but challenging. I don't want us to have an easy life. I just want us to have a really efficient, skilled service. But I don't want my team to get beaten up if we get one that goes over time, which I think is a negative for everybody. It doesn't show well. But we're working with what we've got. I'm extremely confident that we will just continue to improve across all of my teams, and I'm really happy to answer any questions at all on anything you've got in front of you.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate that. And as you say, as I said, we will also be interested in some of that going forward. I'm interested in your views around measures and KPIs, noting that they're mandatory. Derek's gone. He's just ducked out. Okay. Okay, well done. Anybody else got any questions or comments? Yes, Paul.
Please. I noticed that KPI 3.2 is to do with the burial issue, and it said that connectivity was part of the cause of it. So I'm presuming that's cell phone reception, and I'm just thinking, does that mean that'll be an ongoing problem?
I think, through you, Mr. Chairman, that possibly good to have a look at that KPI and how we're measuring that. I'm not sure if you want to do anything to that, Sam, but so the KPI has a 2-hour buffer in it, so that the plots are really on time for whānau. What's happened with the two that weren't, it doesn't necessarily say they weren't ready on time. What it's saying is we weren't notified on time. So we can make an assumption it was ready, but it's that notification piece. So the staff have met with contractors, and they've all agreed that notifications need to come in ahead of that time. Those two were early burials as well, so the plots needed to be done by 8 in the morning.
I thought it mightn't be good to talk about the worm turning when we're talking about burials, but...
Sam, you've got some comments.
Through the chair, I'm happy to follow up on the councillor's query about connectivity in detail. What I would highlight in terms of the service to our customers on those two particular burials, we were 3 minutes late of our 2-hour target, so it didn't, on one instance, so it didn't compromise the service to our family that was involved. The second one was 18 minutes past the required target time, but again didn't compromise the burial itself. So yeah, happy to pick up on the question and the feedback and get it back to you, but I'd like to assure you that from a customer point of view, we provided a sound service.
Yeah, I'm not criticising, I'm just thinking that this cell phone issue is probably not one we're going to have much control over.
Right, we may get Derek back for his question, but perhaps... Oh, have you got one there?
Sorry, I've just got one relating to waters. 100% of the KPIs for stormwater, but I just want a clarification on in some of the townships that a lot of the stormwater is connected through to the wastewater systems, and there have been overflows. Is that potentially being picked up within the wastewater category of KPIs versus the stormwater, and is that potentially a missing true read on the metrics there?
I'll ask Bevan to join me on that one.
Sorry, yeah, I'm not involved with that now, but
Generally, the stormwater shouldn't be connected to the wastewater, but overflows do occur because stormwater does get into the wastewater system. That happens pretty much with all wastewater schemes throughout the country too. Some are good if they only have like 20 or 30% of the flow getting into stormwater, but some can be 1,000% more. And we do have a couple of bad towns that occurs. Winton is one, and they're looking at that this year in quite a depth to try to get the flows down so that when you build the new plant, it's not compromised because of high flows of stormwater.
So it is potential that the 100% meeting the KPIs of stormwater may have the anomaly of some stormwater overflows are actually causing overflow within the wastewater scheme rather than the stormwater scheme. So it's not necessarily a 100% success rate.
The actual percentage of like stormwater going to the wastewater scheme will be still small in comparison to the overall amount of stormwater.
More town by town.
Yeah.
That's great. I just wanted some clarity around that metric.
Tom, through Mr. Chair. My question revolves around the KPIs not being met. 3 of them with regards to staffing issues at Emergency Management Southland, and just my concern around, there's 2 other things there which are linked, so to do with the weather conditions and then the ongoing cost of bitumen repair to roading, which is linked to Emergency Management Southland in terms of some of the flood risks, as an example, and also non-compliances of drinking water standards, which is obviously also linked based on our level of infrastructure or not. Can we get any indication of where we are at with Emergency Management Southland and addressing some of those staffing issues so that we are aware of the risks, going into, especially to this time of year?
I'm going to ask Mayor Scott to...
Yeah, I can answer that Emergency Management Southland one. They're recruiting a new group manager at the moment in control, so I think in the next 6 months we'll see an increase there as they sort of build up their capability. They've got a temporary manager in at the moment that's kind of doing the BAU, but in terms of that proactive work, that will going forward as they get that position filled and then filter through.
Okay, Derek, welcome back. You had your hand up for a question, so if you'd like to ask that now, please feel free.
Regarding the Eastern Bush Water Scheme, I just wanted getting on finding source of water, but that.
Yeah, I think Kai can reinterpret. I think Derek is know about trying to find a new source. Is that trying to do it Eastern Bush? Anybody able to help me here?
Yeah, they've got to boil water now.
I realise they've got to boil water, but I think it wasn't the. Oh, Derek, are you back there? Sorry, we lost.
Yep. No, sorry.
We froze on you. I don't know which way. Where do I go, Derek?
You could type a question.
Can you type your question into the chat facility, Derek? Might be safest way to get your question out.
Yep. No, all good.
Just while he's looking for that, it does note in here there's a new plant 2026-27.
No, I realise that, but I think in reading it, I think the development was also trying to find a new source. Yeah. Am I right? I think that's right. And I think his question was, how are we going? I don't know the answer.
Bevan, can you respond to that?
Yes, relating to the new source, I know they've put down several wells, and I think the likely outcome will be a combined, the wells are not producing enough water, so there'll be probably a combined source where they'll get some of the water from the river and some from the wells and combine the two. Is probably where it's heading.
Thank you. Look, Derek may want to get his question out. I may have misinterpreted Derek, so it may well be that we have a renewed question from Derek, which perhaps we can get answered outside of the meeting. Thank you for that. Yes, Christine?
Yes, I just had another question in relation to the water and related to that. Will the boil water notice stay until that new plant is in place? I understand it.
That's what they've been told.
Yes.
Any other questions? Robin, I read this, as I said, with great interest, and my colleagues have canvassed most of my sort of immediate things. The thing that interests me is how are we going to report this in our annual report? And I think there are some really important messages here that we need to I can't go past and we discussed this massively in the LTP process, but we spent all our money on our roads, but we're a third behind. And I mean, that was mentioned in the LTP, but here goes the audited position, the base on which we're starting 10 years. And I think this needs to be part of the thing to go through. I actually also think, given the challenge of our LTP, that maintaining levels of service is challenging given costs. I think it's important we try and give a real reflection, sorry, wrong word, we have given a real reflection of the past, perhaps a more nuanced reflection of our performance. So Paul, you raised, for instance, the 2-hour clearance of a plot before the service. We only have a sample of 86 for which 2 were out. We nearly got there. I really think we need to have, that's not achieved. Okay? It isn't the performance we desire. Sam, I have to say, if I was a customer and you were 18 minutes late and I was trying to have a service, I might be getting a wee bit nervous as a family. Okay, so I mean, that's not the problem. I think the point I'm making here is that many of these, probably outside, dare I say, the transport or the water stuff, we're nearly there, and we should reflect that. Or taking on board Adrian's point, the graphs that we have in the report here are really valuable to understand something which gives rise to reflection on improved performance. And I'm going to, we have to get this past the auditors, Robin, but why wouldn't we put those graphs that shows that actually post-balance date, with the reform we're doing, performance is better, substantially, well, more than substantially, a step change better than it was in the past. So I think actually we should, if I can be honest, Ian, I really want to encourage a level of more nuanced reporting about our performance. And I've clearly focused on the red. I just don't want us to poke ourselves in the eye with reds as not achieved, which, arguably it is, but actually it's still not bad performance. But equally, I'd be very keen for those ones that really count and reflect the headwinds, the roading, probably some of the water compliance issues, reflect substantial challenges where we haven't met performance and will affect us going forward. And indeed will drive some of the strategy that we've got to think of around local water's done well, particularly around getting a significant crack at the rating budget. That's really a comment from me rather than anything else, but I really would like to suggest that because I'd like to give value to the work staff have done and the value of what this report. It probably isn't anybody, unless anyone wants to make a comment on that. I'd just like to leave that as a closing thought. Any other thoughts or comments folk would like to have? If I could just ask Robin that we check with Derek after the meeting as to what his real question was. I've assumed what it was, but it might be that we could get a clarity from Derek before. Rightio, can we go to the resolution, please? We received the report and we note Council's performance and KPI targets in the context. So what good. So we don't want to ignore the challenging. I'll remove in a second of things. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Paul. Discussion on the motion? Being none, I'll put it all out. Please say aye. Against is carried. Thank you for that, Robin. Appreciate that. We'll have a look now, Jane, at the risk assessment. That'd be great.
Good morning, Mr Chair. Good morning, Committee. So my report is to present the September 24 Corporate Risk Management Update. So I'll take the report as read, however noting that we have two risks that remain assessed as increased for the quarter and under active watch. The third risk that's also assessed as increased, the risk to Council's financial sustainability has begun to be formally reported against, and it's been introduced to the risk register as increased given the constraints that we faced at an economic and financial level, and which have been highlighted through that LTP process. I would like to apologise on that finance risk space that we haven't been able to produce a fully fleshed out risk for you to consider today. As you'll note, obviously a lot of the key staff that will feed into that risk have been involved in the LTP work. We have undertaken widespread discussions at organisation and ELT level. That has helped form the inherent risk assessment that you'll see. But we're continuing to build our understanding of the implications of this risk and also the effectiveness of the controls that we've currently got in place. So that work will continue over this next quarter so that we can bring those post-assessments to you for the December quarter. Elsewhere over the quarter, you'll all be aware central government has begun to outline its expectations of local government, the local government sector, with its messaging around the delivery of core services and value for money and accountability. We'll need more clarity about what these announcements will mean. However, all opportunities and implications for both council and the community will be assessed and responded to. So it's important to note that this messaging, along with the continued pace and scale of legislative change, does have implications both for our direction of travel and also for our strategic relationships, both with central government and back into the community. Before I open for questions, I would just like to respond to your mention about risk profile and just let you know that for the October F&A meeting, we are planning to be holding a workshop with you. It won't be addressing the risk profile as such, but we will start that discussion around risk appetite, which will begin to inform that understanding of our risk profile. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate that, and thank you for the advice around risk appetite. That's really important. Any other comments, questions for Jane or you? Yes, Jaspreet.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Jane, page 51, point number 51. The most recent rates affordability modelling indicates that the median total rates now make up 5.31% of median household income. That's higher than the affordability indicator. So have we, and then it goes on to say by year 10, this is expected to increase to 8.95%. So who does this modelling? Are we doing that in-house?
Sorry, Mr Chair, that's the modelling that was presented to you as part of the LTP document, and it's done in-house.
Completely in-house?
Yes, it's done in-house.
And should we be having an external look at it also? Have we done it at any stage?
No, we've done it purely in-house. So there's a lot of assumptions that are based around that, principally around the income levels of people. So we've put an inflationary factor on based on the statistical data of the past. So where it actually ends up, we're not sure. So it is purely an indication.
Because for me, just the whole thing about reset the rates are, demanded by this balanced budget approach, and we are ourselves setting the affordability index as well. So perhaps a set of externalized there. But do we have any examples of any councils doing that or something?
I personally don't. I don't know if the chair has any thing where anyone's tried to actually do that affordability modelling.
I want to perhaps just talk with a couple of colleagues on that, Jaspreet. Firstly, raises the question what actually is affordability, and we're talking here, I suspect, about the standard in the sector, which is 5% of I don't know whether it's average or mean. Let's not get too tied up in that, but essentially average household income has for probably the last 20 years in the sector been taken as an informal basis for affordability. It would be fair to say that a good number of councils these days are getting, without having moved away from 5%, by the way, more current economic indicators, from some of the various business houses. I think, Infometrics, Burl, NZIA, those sorts of places are tending to provide some specific advice, obviously on a fee basis, to councils that might nuance or give an externalised view your point around affordability, which is an option. But otherwise, running with a 5% of household income is a pretty, at the moment, it's a fairly standard approach looking at affordability.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
So I've got Christine and then I've got Matt.
Thank you. Probably more just a question around the process. I gather when these are reviewed quarterly against the LT, there's also a review of the current mitigations because that's what brings the level down. That review does occur. How might we know that new mitigations have been put in and other ones taken out without going back and actively comparing it?
Yes, through you, Mr Chair. There isn't visibility of that at this level. Certainly that's something that we can investigate doing for you. We are at the moment trying to put a piece together that will start measuring the effectiveness of each of those risks, and it may be a piece that can then be pulled into what you see at committee level so that you have an understanding of where the mitigations are actually doing what they should be doing in terms of treating the risk and where potentially further work needs to be undertaken. That's something that is being developed at the moment for an ELT level, and certainly once that's completed, we can consider how we build that visibility for the community.
Thank you. I don't want to add a lot more work into staff, but even if new mitigations are put in italics, that we can immediately see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt.
Thanks, Chris. I'm not sure if this is possibly a question for Rob, but just in regards to the proposal of potential reorganisation of local government in Southland, looking at change and social licence and strategic relationships, possibly next quarter, is it fair to think that that proposal and how that's approached with our neighbouring councils and the communities, with all the opportunities, also may have some risks that need to be addressed within this kind of risk mitigation program?
It's probably,
I assume it would be.
I think it's a fair statement to make, and in terms of, there's a risk, I guess, in terms of where we sit in Southland, but being early days, there's something to potentially keep an eye on in terms of. So yeah,
particularly in that strategic relationships space, I think it would be a very balanced, planned approach.
You say it's also the opportunity. So, sorry, the laughter, Matt, was I've raised this with Rob as well, as your committee chair. Not because I want to say it shouldn't have or anything like that, but just reflect what it is. Let's work through what does that mean for our risk environment. Great. Anything else folk would like to raise? Jane, I must confess, my suggestion for a meeting was, I'm just wondering whether our assessment of our risk profile is actually as current as I see it. I actually think our risk profile is in a much more difficult position. So if I was to go to your question, Jez, Peter, around the finances, I'm actually quite worried about the financial sustainability. Not because of what we've said and done in the LTP, but because of the future uncertainty that we face as local government. And within a year, we are going to have a water service delivery plan. That in itself is a challenge. But actually, the other part of a water service delivery plan is actually what is the rest of council. So I think some of these things are actively changing the dynamic of our risk environment. And actually, I could be saying this to my previous council I was at yesterday as well, by the way. But actually, I think that the nature of the the environment is changing. You mentioned, and I agree with you, and I think it's really, well, actually, it's not even a risk, although there is uncertainty still about central government reform. But as I've stressed, I'm also worried about actually what could be the response. For instance, if our water service recovery plan is not found to be acceptable. So I actually think the environment in which we're operating is substantially more difficult. In fact, as I came in thinking about the finance saying that actually I think it's actually more difficult. I was asking Rob, and that was a very informal, I don't know if we know the answer yet, but a critical thing is we can get $147 million for our roads. At the moment it's 125. We have a real credibility risk, level of service risk, deferred maintenance on our asset risk if we don't get at least that $18.5 million. That's critical. So a good risk profile would say if that's critical, and that's my view, you may want to differ with me, that's why I think we need to have a discussion around these things. If that's critical, what stops us getting that $18.5 million? That's actually the risk we're trying to manage. And if that is really critical, and I mean, I'm building a straw man here, it doesn't, you folk can disagree with me. How's our risk management helping us get that $85 million? If that's one of the more critical objectives we have to have in the next 15 months, or actually the next year, have we got the right resource devoted to getting that $18.5 million? And that's where I think I'm keen to see that, A, we make use of this a wee bit better, but I actually also think the nature of our general profile is a lot tougher than perhaps we're displaying in a very good, helpful report, except when I get to the assessment of where we are with our risk, which I think is heightened. So that's what I would actually perhaps bring as a bit of a challenge. I'm not certain that we have quite got the risks and ultimately where our resources need to be devoted quite in the right place. So that's a bit of a big statement from me, but I would just like to reflect on that one and actually just think through what are the implications for actually how we nail what we need to achieve over the next 18 months and how our risk profile helps us achieve that.
Yeah, Tom, through you, Mr. Chair. I think some of that comes back to what this report has highlighted specifically about some of the risks associated with central government legislative changes.
Exactly. Yeah.
All of that sort of stuff which we're aware of.
Yeah.
But also, I think Southland is positioned fairly well to adopt some of, or to address some of those risks. If you talk about the roading, for an example, we've talked about this before. The percentage of our levy going to central government and then being reinvested back into Southland is questionable. So I think that's a pretty good starting point. The fact that the tourism levy has gone up to $100, and a lot of that comes down to a lot of our roads being used. So I think maybe we look at a user pay system a little bit more effectively in the long term as well. I think we've got a pretty good argument for that. So I mean, those risks are there, and it's a competitive market for councils. We're all in the same boat in terms of having some amazing cost blowouts and trying to be able to manage those. But if you were to look at it in black and white in terms of what we can produce as a region and put that to central government, I think that would be, my personal opinion, foolish to not understand the long-term investment that's needed into a place like Southland in order to be able to keep us going based on our level of GDP to the country as a whole. So yeah, there's a risk there, but the risk is us not being able to engage with central government effectively in order to be able to mitigate a lot of this stuff.
Agreed entirely, and I'm positive about Southland too in the way that you said. But actually, what's the connection between the positivity, and I take your point about what Southland's earning,
in the position we're in. Because the position we're in at the moment is that our cost structure, sorry, I should be careful. Cost of inputs, for instance, to road, and I'm just banging on about roading because we've just talked about it, the previous one, has said in the last year we're a third behind where we want to be. At the moment, we're going to be more than a third behind where we want to be in the coming year. That's irrelevant for us. We don't have, I mean, are we going to be one of the 5 that's selected for a regional deal?
Probably not.
No, you know, I mean, all I'm trying to reflect here is how do we join the positivity about Southland with the particulars of us as a council? Because at the moment, the financial strategy, which has been adopted on the best position that we can, still has to be achieved. And we don't, you know, there's no obvious answer other than actually have we got the right folks and resource. So it comes back to the point you're making as well. What's the quality of our relationship like with central government? How do we influence and shape our future around that? Now, there's lots going on, but I'm just thinking from a risk perspective. We need to understand that and have that as a common understanding so we can get a proper sense of what our risk profile really is, Tom. I agree with you entirely, but actually we need to translate that into what does that mean next year for us from a risk perspective. I agree. It'd be good to have that, but we don't have it at the moment. We just have places. Rob, you've probably got a good comment here.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, what you say has got merit, and I think it comes down to that agility that we need to have as well. We've had lots of changes in Wellington over the last 10 years, and getting ahead of that and front-footing it and looking at even the ratepayer affordability piece, and at the risk of being a salesman for my reorganisation proposal, but that's the kind of stuff that we need to be doing to be agile in terms of being relevant to the environment that we're currently operating in and looking for those savings outside of stuff being done to us, but actually driving that on the front foot and looking at that kind of, particularly the affordability piece, but also that agility of making it work what's best for Southland. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we can be doing even inside the scope that we're in to minimise a lot of those risks that we're foreseeing.
And it would be good to capture those. And have we got the right resource attached to it? I mean, and I'm not actually, I mean, this has nothing to do necessarily, I'm not arguing, Jane, against the risk profile, the risk environment and the strategies we have in place. I get it. I'm trying to make certain that what we do from a quarterly perspective here relates to real things that are tangible that we need to achieve in the coming year. That's where good risk governance and management needs to lie, I think, in these changing times. You know, and I think probably this is why I wouldn't mind workshopping it, because I think there's some discussions I'd like to have outside of the formality of this meeting, because I mean, I'm really making statements now, not asking questions. I just wonder if there is some element there that we could take that forward. Any other thoughts from folk? More than said my bit. Paul?
I totally agree about our contribution to the economic export side of things. Still, the fact we've got a diminishing number of votes compared to other parts of the country, and that will always play a part, I think. Aside from that, while we're having these constraints on our financial side of things, I'm just mindful of what could happen if we have an adverse event in the middle of all that. And I just wonder about our ability to function, supposing 4th Street was underwater or what this place was blocked off by earth, whatever. And just wondering if we've got some contingencies. I don't mean that we put huge resources in it, but I think it's something we need to do a bit of forward thinking about. Years ago, we put a generator in at 4th Street, and it was a very strategic idea to keep the place going, but actually I understand now that generator is probably obsolete. So I don't know, I just think we need to have a think about how we're placed.
And this is where we need to support Jane.
Absolutely.
There's this sort of debate around actually what really is the bottom line around our risks. Well, look, I probably would very quickly agree with you, Paul, but actually it starts to then provide a bit of focus. actually what could go wrong? Are we ready for an adverse event? What could go wrong? Well, you know, and I don't know. And I think it's relevant at the moment about the detail about the generator. That's part of the value of the deep dive program that Jane's taking us through. But I just feel like we haven't for a year or two reflected across the whole suite of our risk environment, attaching it to what we want to achieve. And I think that would be a value. I'm just arguing my case again to take that broader view. Okay.
Yeah.
Sam, you need to.
I thought I'd just, through the chair, provide a brief bit of information, not to take away from the strategic discussion, but I can assure you that the existing generator at 4th Street is operational and regularly serviced. The casing on it does look a little bit degraded, but it is operational and usable.
Thanks, mate. Good to have that assurance. Paul. Okay, any other comments or questions folks would like to raise? Yes, Jaspreet.
Just one, and this is a general comment. I'm looking at points 63 and 67, and both of them refer to the recent media coverage of a local government board. And I wonder if this is a good forum to reflect if we could have somewhat, at some stage, front-footed that, or how do we manage such a thing going further with more leadership from council on such impact, such an issue at the first instance? Would it have stopped some of the fallout that we see? Are there some learnings we could take from there? Just my reflection on that particular one, because there has been very heightened emotions from voter and the media coverage, and perhaps there's something we can all take on board from that one. Do you have any suggestions there?
No, through you, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned in the report, there's obviously opportunities for council to respond, to utilise these opportunities to further in public interest. There's been a lot of public interest in it. It is something that we could potentially build on to try and stimulate awareness of the elections coming up, if people are interested and whether they are happy to put their hand up to stand. But yes, it obviously has had, there was a potential for both positive and negative.
Yeah, because when you refer to social licensing, I guess you're talking about the learnings from what the fallout has been. My concern is more towards how could we next time stop such a thing to reaching that stage. Some way to.
My understanding is that
hand raised there.
Bertie, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are two ways of looking at that particular situation. It could actually increase the interest in standing for the board, which anecdotally we might also have heard. In this particular, there are learnings from everything. In this particular instance, could we have preempted something, done some communications, engagement outside of the process? My instinct is to say no. It's a political process. It was a democratic process. It needed to run the course it was running. I don't think interference in that would be correct. So that's my overarching statement in those sorts of things. But generally speaking, could we have, in other instances when things are perhaps arising for us, we definitely need to think of that, and we are starting to think. I'm sure we've got procedures in place, but whether we could actually define what's now reaching a strategic comms level and triggering that we do something different is definitely something we need to look at.
Thank you for that question. Is there anything else folks would like to discuss? Look, I think we should probably keep moving, but if we come back to the recommended resolution, which is your received report, we note the risks currently assessed as significant. And I want to just reflect, I've made some deep comments saying, yes, you raise all the significant issues. I'm trying to box it into how does that relate, not for you, but actually for the organisation, into action and prioritisation going forward. So I'm very happy to move this because we have got the risks here. I'm just interested to know how significant they are. Do we have a seconder for this, please? Yep. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Any discussion on the motion? The motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Appreciate that. Right, can we go to health and safety, please? It's on page 77 of our agenda.
morning, Mr Chair.
Dave, in fairness to Dave, engaged with me on this report, and Dave, thank you for some of the changes that have been brought about and how it's moving on. We appreciate the attention you give to some of the comments that I've put through. So, in your hands.
Thank you. So, just some highlights from the report provided. You would have seen in the covering report mention of the new good practice guide from the Institute of Directors New Zealand, and hopefully that's provided some updates or awareness of the change for those operating in that officer space, and the application of the health and safety statutes around that. In the A3 body of the report, under events, pleased to share that there's no notifiable events or work injuries during this quarter, and year to date, being from the 1st of January in this case, we've had 9 injuries in total. These are reflected in slips, trips, lower end cuts and bruising, so there's no causal factors or contributing factors that link back to our critical risk program in those. We've completed remedial work in the hope that the risk of repetitions are very limited, but otherwise lag indicators aren't driving our main drivers of work at the moment. Emergency preparedness, we maintain a good group of trained people across the organisation, as well as compliance regarding our approved evacuation schedules. That said, we've set an objective to train additional staff before the end of the year, rebuilding evacuation procedures, evacuation chair use, handheld firefighting equipment and building warden duties, just to ensure we have some further reserve there if people are absent. Managing risk, outlined the 4 main risks that we've been exposed to or encountered over this last quarter, and they've actually been repeating through previous reports as well, so have become our main focus of work for the balance of 2024, with a priority to limit the exposure that workers will encounter with those. Verification and assurance activities from our staff in relation to audits and safety observations in the field remain strong, and there's a good effort to recognise risk when they're observing work and address those with the workers completing at the time. This has either been resolved in real time or meant shorter responses and actions to correct any issues at the moment. And an instance of that is the gate security that's mentioned on the A3 was corrected within 2 days and reported back to us. Audits, as far as a deep dive for myself, amount of work done around our waste services in the district over the last quarter, and really good results there. The main outcome was being able to provide a table through the leadership team indicating where our primary duties lay with each of the organisations engaged in those activities. And that also led on to looking at some of our sites where we noted the exposure to overhead services as to how we'd set those up, and that's subject to further discussions going forward. Engagement participation, health and safety representation numbers within our organisation remain stable and within legislative requirements. Inductions for new starters continue with online training and in-person inductions offered within the first month, and this is also well supported by the efforts of P&C with online services, first day, first month and 3 monthly meetings with new employees. Health and safety is also a permanent agenda across our organisational meetings, as indicated in the meeting charting of engagement and participation. There's also an amount of work occurring to build real-time dashboards at the moment out of our health and safety management system. So the hope in the future is that all these areas, to give an indication of safety maturity, will be available day by day to both workers and elected members. Worker and contract knowledge. Training opportunities are continually being identified and assessed by need, and that's reflected in the delivery over this last quarter around the focus on traffic management, personal safety and wellbeing. And come next week, we will be hosting the Construction Health and Safety New Zealand organisation to deliver some knowledge sessions for our staff and approved contractors. So we've got two sessions here, one out at the Otautau office, and I think we've clicked up to about 120 participants so far. So free for our approved contractors to attend, and they should get a good brief across the benefits of pre-qualification systems and how we might be able to make that flow better for ourselves in the future. We've also invited the other councils from the Southland area in the hope we can get some agreement on incentivising that as well. Contractors do get further certifications. And ergonomic practices within civil and construction industry. And the third area is the energy wheel, which is focused on critical risk and the energy that results out of those critical risks that might hurt you, and how you isolate yourself from those. So looking forward to delivering that.
That's encouraging. Thanks, Dave. Do you have questions for Dave on? By the way, welcome, Margie. I think you've joined the line. Great to have you on board. We received your apology.
Thanks, Bruce.
On. Thank you for letting us know earlier on. Questions for Dave?
Just one, Bruce. You mentioned elected members a bit earlier on. I'm not sure exactly what part referring to. Regards to like our elected community board and council themselves, there's an example here of the worker and contractor village. For example, the conflict de-escalation training. Is there potential that that kind of service and training be made available to some community board members, elected members, could be beneficial as well? Or is it kind of, it's been within the organisation, does that, those opportunities extend out to elected? Or anything, I'm just picking that one as an example, but yeah, health and safety, having opportunities and mitigations and that, in all of these spaces, and it's great to have this within the organisation, knowing what some of our community's elected members have to face sometimes, and ensuring that their physical safety and mental wellbeing and everything is covered. Can some of these opportunities be more put forward to some of our communities, elected members, particularly knowing that, you know, certainly recently there's been some quite heated community board meetings and subject to public scrutiny and things like that. So just ensuring that the same opportunities to staff internally are being extended out to our elected members. Don't know if there's room for any extension there.
I'd suggest as they would fall within that volunteer type definition under the legislation, so we should be considering how we minimise their exposure to those sorts of risks, and yeah, a similar supporting program of de-escalation and or how to deal with difficult people in meetings maybe as well.
Yeah, just one example, I guess.
And Dave, I'd even say, Matt, even if it wasn't from the health and safety legislation, very sentiment, I think would be a bad thing. I've got a related story, which I'll only do at lunchtime, about me being not a ratepayer of Southland, but elsewhere where I'm here on a plane. I couldn't get away from them, so it's interesting. You have that experience, Rob? I don't know. But I agree. Key point is I'm not certain, Dave, why it shouldn't be. Do you call that an engine failure? Pardon? Do you call that? Yeah, a few sparks, that's right. That's it. Really just want to go in the bag. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be appropriate.
Well, it's probably more follow-up on then, if it is, then what kind of communication through to the community boards and elected members on a very, this is available to you. We get things from like LGNZ supporting elected members, but they're a very third-party and distant body. So if we have SDC available services and support, we should be ensuring that it's getting to the elected members as well.
that might be quite Dave's thing to pick up, but perhaps Dave's seen this your paper.
Feed into the system.
Certainly something we can look at.
Brilliant, if you could, that'd be great, please. I think it would be a good outcome. Well done. We're up to health and safety. Any other questions or comments at this stage? Thank you for the report. Thank you for, as I said, you gave me some more information around about being an appreciative of that. So the motion is that we receive the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Christine. Motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Righty, I suspect we welcome back Adrian now. Jane's here. Thank you, Jane. Sorry, I didn't see you down the far end of the room. Progress on our 17A review. That's it. Well done.
Through the chair. Good morning, everybody. And we've got some people to talk to as well and give you some concrete updates on what's happening out there in the industry. So it was a positive report again this month. There's been a lot of movement on some of the items that we needed to address, and we've also identified some future work as well. As a result of out of this, we need to do a few other things as an organisation. But I'm really pleased to be submitting this to you. Obviously, my colleague to my far right will give you some absolutely stunning examples of what's happening out there, and this is Scott Gillespie who will give us some industry information. But in regard to the actual report, I'm seeking some extensions on 3 items to change of circumstances, and also that we are got to develop some future proofing. And also we have put another 3 for completed with some explanations there as well. So, can I introduce the others to do something?
Please go for it, Jane. Thank you.
Scott is here on behalf of Joe Ward, who is currently overseas. So he got the short straw very quickly to give us a very brief update on the type of work that's been happening from within the building area. I'll pass over to him.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen. We implemented our engagement and community strategy 18 months ago, and since then we've attended 2 Southland home shows, 1 Waimumu field days, 2 master builders meetings, 2 brick and block layers association meetings. We've held 5 industry events in the evenings, 3 in Te Anau, 2 in Invercargill, with a 400% increase in attendance from the first 2 to the most recent. The first 2 events had disappointing attendance numbers with around 10 people, but the most recent events in Invercargill and Te Anau attracted between 30 to 40 builders and designers to each of them. We've had over 30 drop-in days at our Winton, Riverton, Tautau and Lumsden district offices, allowing the community to speak directly with our team members and our building control officers. We have regular appointments available now for customers each day in Invercargill in the office to drop in and speak to one of us as well on all their technical information they might want. We've sent out 9 newsletters to industry stakeholders. These are available through email subscription, and they're also made available on the building website. We just include useful information or any updates that we may have done in the building team. We've done a complete rewrite of the entire building website pages to ensure we're providing our community with the most up-to-date information that's available. We've had 4 industry focus group meetings with selected builders and designers and have implemented several initiatives from these meetings, including a new residential check sheet for applicants to use to help them provide better consent applications. This should make the information within applications easier to find for our processors and inspectors. This will enable us to improve our efficiency when we're processing, so improving timeframes. This is planned to be launched at the end of September, along with a new discretionary exemption for unlined pole sheds. So it should give those farmers sort of some help with their shed projects. We've opened up lines of communication for the industry to contact our team leads. We've put our contact numbers out there directly, so any issues, they're able to contact us directly, because a lot of the feedback we've had is that we just can't get hold of anyone in the building team. Who do we speak to? So now they're able to contact our team leaders. Feedback received from our industry nights was extremely positive, and there were several comments that our customers were finding SDC to be more engaged and open to discussion. They can see a huge shift in how we're trying to work with them and not against them. Those that are in the industry focus group have quickly become our allies. They were happy to stand in front of attendees at our industry events and help present to promote the building team as a progressive team that are willing to help work with the industry and make things easier and more efficient. We will continue to execute our plan and are always looking to new ways to engage with our stakeholders to ensure there is mutual trust between us. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm open to any questions if you may have.
Great, Scott. No, I appreciate that, and thank you for Joe. That's very encouraging to hear. Before I have questions, so Adrian, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, great, Scott, I think is the right words to use, actually. I just want to emphasise the fact that I know I get quite boring with this, but this is all done by the team, not done by me or by management. The team took up the challenge and they pushed through all of these things and are working really well. I've had some individual feedback from builders relating to the Tiano event on the last cluster meeting group that they had there, and it's all been extremely positive. We're still going to get the odd individual who doesn't like us, mainly the people that were telling to comply with stuff they don't want to do. But the actual culture, the effort and the involvement is appropriate. The website is a revelation, not just in building but other areas as well. One area where we had a little bit of an issue was the fact we didn't have a quality advisor for a while. We couldn't recruit one. We got one and then he moved to Hamilton before he started. But we've now got a quality advisor on board who lives remotely, but Tina Donovan, she does fantastic work. She comes down here, blends very, very well with the team. The team love her, she loves them. She's just done our annual audit review. Our annual audit review come back, it was just one area where we needed to sharpen up. She told me about it on last Friday, and it's already been done by today, and the systems are in place and people are doing the work. So we've got an agile, responsive, efficient, hard-working group of people. We're going to lose people now and again and get new ones in, but that's the nature of the beast. We have a new manager starting next month. I'm just really positive about what building are doing. I just think they're doing a phenomenal job. And Scott and Michael and Ellie, the other team leaders, and Joe Anderson, who's currently the acting manager, they're just smashing it, and we're very lucky to have them. So I can do nothing but commend them. Everything that Scott says there is absolutely true, and I hope you're getting the same feedback from the builders on your watch. And if people do have a problem, tell us about it. We're not afraid. We're willing to have a discussion. We're not the big bad bear. But no, I just basically copy everything Scott says, really.
Thank you, Adrian. Right. Again, going right back to the original comments, Jane, do appreciate the ongoing accountability for what was originally a problem. I'm glad to say it looks very much like being a good part of the organisation, which is superb. Questions for Jane and team? Yes, Rob.
Thanks, Bruce. And yeah, I can certainly speak from my position that the improvements are definitely recognised in the community. So yeah, just want to commend with doing. The drop-ins that you've been doing around the district and the offices, have they had good numbers of people? I think it's a really good initiative, but how many people you are getting coming in?
Yeah, there's usually probably between half a dozen might come through. Depends how well it's been promoted. We actually started going to promote them through comms now as well, so through Facebook and that, so people are more aware of them. So,
but just general kind of questions of how do I do this, and
we take a technical person and an administration person, so we can help them with their building consent applications, and then we've got the technical person there if they've got any, they might need a CCC. How do I get this over the line? So we can help them both ways.
I think it's great actually going out to the people rather than expecting them to come into Invercargill as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Great initiative. Yes, any other questions or comments? Yes, Tom.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. In terms of the audit, the IANZ audit in February, and we've put together our plans and submitted that, and we have a contractor at this stage, what are we doing in order to be able to I suppose, attract a person for that position? And is it a requirement from IAN's audit to have a permanent staff member by that time?
Through you, Mr. Chair, really good question. We couldn't get a person with suitable qualifications in the short term. So we put it out and we had 2 contractors offer us their services. We attracted Tina Donald, who is former IAN's person as well. She has done everything she needs to do for us. She is under contract to us till after the IAN's audit. We're managing to cover it within budget as well through an agreement with Tina. Yes, there is a requirement for us to have a quality person. In fact, IAN's go as far to dictate the title of the person needs to be quality manager, all right, even though that causes some discomfort because it's not a managerial role, it's a technical role. We will have a quality manager in place. So what we've done to support that, one of our current technical team, we are training them in the background through quality assessment, working with the contractor that's here to skill up. So come after the IAN's audit, they should be in a position where they can step into that role, and then we'll backfill into the position they're in at the moment, which is less difficult to fill. So the plans are there, the system's there, the things are going exactly as they should. And I hate saying this, but I'm actually really confident that we're going to be fine come the IAN's audit in March. You never know what's going to happen, but I'm very, very confident that we are definitely where we should be and going forward.
If I could just add a comment too, not just in the building area and the quality assurance, but across services, people have upskilled quite dramatically and taken on accountabilities that they didn't either have the confidence or the knowledge to do before. So we're actually seeing this coming right across. I mean, the building team are fab, you know, we all bow to them. But the rest of EH is doing an awful lot of new stuff, and their online forms are becoming less complex. It's making it easy to do business with us, and that was the key driver, I believe. You know, this was quite damning initially, as you say, but it's started a movement, and people are working across the board, from what I can determine. So I'm just really proud of them.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just on the complexity issue, the main issue I put to Tina Donald, who's our quality advisor, was it's too complex. I mean, in my dark and distant past, I was also a quality person as part of my health and safety role. And everything IAN's needed was there, but there was too much of it. And so I said to her, look, I want you to look at it so we don't chuck out the baby with the bathwater, but I want to make it easier to operate. And she's done a great job on that. The difficulty being, if you have 1,000 things for IAN's to look at, they'll look at 1,000 things. If you have 50 things to look at, they'll look at 50 things. So you're setting yourself up to fail by doing those things, and we don't do that anymore. So it's been a real revelation. She's done a fantastic job, and the guys have supported her really well. Yeah, it's just good news at the moment, which, you know, again, hopefully it'll keep coming.
Great. Paul, I think you've
Oh, well, it's not a question, but I've just recently been involved in a building consent myself, and through Objective Build, I was looking at it. And like lots of things I do online, it turned into a complete nightmare. But the council staff were just brilliant in getting me through that and getting it back on track again. So, yeah.
Great. Like user acceptances there, that's tremendous. Christine.
Thank you. It's excellent to hear the good progress on the plan. Just a couple of comments, just around the pilot that was completed around the training. So that's good to see as well. You've probably already thought about this in terms of future-proofing it, so it doesn't rely on one person to deliver the training. Yeah. Okay. And the second question is just around that you're planning to quantify the location of the remainder of the property records. Why do we need to quantify it rather than just shift?
Okay. The item from within the original report was about a specific group of building documents. So that's been remediated and has been resolved prior to Julie leaving us. We were able to tie that one down. What it has done, and I referred to it a bit earlier, it's identified that we have more work to be done to actually get this into a much better state. So it's given birth to another lot of work that needs to be done.
So other records which you need to.
Yeah, and also to ensure that we have got everything as it should be. It's a mammoth task, as you can appreciate, I'm sure. And if you want to appreciate, go and have a look in archives. It's a really big place.
For the first volunteer to go with you, Jane.
Sorry?
I'll look for the first volunteer to go with you.
It's a big place, you can get lost, it's pretty easy, I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this stage? Only thing I would note is I would endorse the very positive direction of travel on this one. And in fact, there's a lot of travel is already done. And it is reasonable for us to contemplate the end of the reporting, which goes through, I think, and I can see there are really two key benchmarks for us. One is the year-end survey. And that's a very brave thing to do, given it wasn't, as we all know, it wasn't great previously. And in terms of us all getting a level of external verification, it's going to be quite a little important test as to how we've gone, and we need to look at that and interpret it very carefully. I think that also means when I go to page, sorry, I've scrolled all over my page, the risk page, page 108, or 109 is it? I was just looking at that front page there of risks, which the residual risk is, I mean, I'm looking for green, nice colour, but they're amber and yellow. That survey, and indeed the IANZ audit, which will come in February, is clearly key to us knowing that we have met the challenge of those risks. So it'll be good to see those knocked off as well, which is superb. In terms of your request under the recommendations, the question, please. So D is that we note you've completed aspects, or you've completed items 27, 26 and 32. Why aren't we closing them, or is there still outstanding work perhaps I didn't quite pick up?
No, complete. It goes through to ELT for approval, right, and then it comes to you for the final.
Okay, so it's still got some approval process, but for all intents and purposes, from your project perspective, you've done the job. Okay, so our role is to note that they're complete.
And just for the sake of clarity too, that there are so many completed items now on the next report. We will not be 13, 14 pages of completed items, because you'll all have electronic copies if you want to look back on anything. Save a couple of trees.
And the second thing, we haven't really discussed it, and I don't know, well, I mean, I'd have some observations, but probably again, not for today's meeting. There are basically steps or actions 9, 10, 11 you're recommending close because of basically the existing situation.
And the improvements that have happened, such as the SIG that has now been formed, that Adrian's been working, he can talk to.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So two things have happened since we last spoke. We formed a special interest group with all of the neighbouring councils, where the compliance people meet up, review, discuss. An example of that, one of our monitoring enforcement officers is going to be going to Central Otago District Council in the next few weeks for a couple of days for cross-pollination. They've got a very experienced officer there, so he's going to go and do some training with them and pick up how they do it. We talk about all things which are sort of universal to us. Freedom camping is an example of that. How do they deal with it? What works? What doesn't work? We also hosted a training day here on the 15th of August where I got a lawyer and a professor from Otago Uni to talk to everybody here and a technical specialist from ES, where we talked about stuff which is affecting all our councils. We talked about preparing documents for court, being a witness, briefing witnesses, gathering information. We talked about sovereign citizens and try to get an insight into why they think the way they think and what's appropriate ways to actually help these people and deal with these people. We talked about sampling and good methods of doing it. So we're trying to upskill the entire local government based on compliance and regulation. And it was very, very well received. We had over 30 people in here, all in the compliance game. So that's going to be a quarterly thing. I'm hoping that other councils will take a turn at hosting it. Our relationships with the other councils are getting stronger by the day. It's working really, really well. Some are slow followers, some are quick. But there's a real benefit to it, and everybody's seeing it. So we're getting that vibe, and we'll keep it going. So it's a really positive thing. The regional bylaws suggestion in the original report, it's good to have things as consistent as you can, but bylaws are bylaws for a reason, and local laws for local situations, and it's quite difficult to achieve. We will look into things like cross-warranting people. We have some cross-warranting already with the Department of Conservation, but we will look at it where it's appropriate. So maybe in some of the distant regions of the district, we might talk to our neighbouring councils and say, we would like to warrant one of your guys to do this, not take a prosecution, but an observation. That's the thing we'll be looking at, but it isn't there yet, and it won't be there until we're all a bit more confident. But so we're not sitting still on this. We are moving forward on it, but it is working really quite well at the moment.
But in terms of the original objective, it's worth reading.
Absolutely, yeah, and more.
It's come to a point where we might as well close it. But you've effectively started I've noted, I call it the back room, or that it's sort of interest group idea, a collaboration in a sense, which may lead to potentially what the original objective was, but for all intents and purposes, this program is closed at this stage. Brilliant. And it's good to note the moving out of the dates under item F, which to me seems reasonably logical to come back to, and particularly be aligned with some of that external verification we're doing through the survey plus the IANS audit, so I'm comfortable with that. Do I have a person prepared to move and people prepared to move and second the motion? Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate that. Any discussion on the motion? Almost need to pass it with acclamation, but I won't break out. So can I suggest all those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, you guys. Appreciate your work and the good news you bring. Scott?
Thank you.
No worries. As well. Thank you. Can we move the finance transactional update, please? Page 130 of the agenda. Hey, Shelley, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for a pretty effective report. We're in your hands.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Councillors. So this is the Council's transactional activities at the 30th of June 2024. So it's a snapshot in time at the end of the financial year. And some things go really well until someone puts $1 million invoice through on the last day, and then my numbers go through the crack. I'm relatively comfortable, as much as you can say when you see big numbers and sometimes them raising up. The rates number has gone up at the end of the year, which is to be expected with rates rises going up, but the total number of people with debt outstanding is actually starting to reduce. We're trying to work really well with people where we can. We do have the highest number that we have put through to debt collection, and that is a last resort. We do try to communicate with everything, and unfortunately some people just aren't keen to, but also sometimes putting them through that process, they actually get in touch and we're able to work through. So sometimes just because we've gone that way doesn't mean that that's where it ends. It sometimes comes back to us and we can work through on those arrangements and other options that we can do. So rates is trucking along quite well. We don't chase debt until it gets to the 30th of June at the end of the year when it becomes arrears, and then we start through those processes. And last year we ended up just slightly higher than we were a year before, with the rates increase was quite good. So comfortable that my team is working through there. We've had a change in roles and responsibilities with new sets of eyes and different people looking at it, so I'm hoping this year's is a bit more of a focus on different things as well. Metered water I'm happy with. There's only a couple of people that we're sort of going through the legal process, so the number will stay high until those get resolved. CAC electricity is fantastic. That's your monthly outline with just one person we chase up occasionally. So really good with that. And sundry debt is something that is actually rising up. I think with different teams doing compliance and other things, we are doing a lot more invoicing than we are out of that department. Of course, some people aren't wanting those invoices, so we have to work through. And again, the increase in arrangements and debt collection and sundry debtor is something that is increasing as the years go on. So we're spending more time trying to monitor and work through with that sort of thing. We got a wee feel-good moment. Our rates rebates, as I sat here last year, you guys sort of said, please keep pushing that. We upped the numbers by another 100 this year, so 200 in 2 years when the number hadn't moved in years, mainly chasing those that went out the door to make sure they came back. So we've continued to do that and work closely with the customer services team. They help us out when they're not busy with dogs, doing the day-to-day rates rebates, direct debits, emails, and the two teams working well together allows us to do a bit more work through.
We had a pretty good year with staffing numbers, and with keeping consistency of staff, it allows you to do a bit more work, add data deep down, making sure everything's right with the amount of sales and changes we get through, and really timely because we've got a revaluation coming through this year as well. So really happy with the team. Always looking for ways to improve. This year we decided to try and email people after the rates due date but before the penalty went on, because there's about a week, because that's a really quick turnaround to do an email reminder, and had what we considered a great response, because when we sent that letter out, there was not many after the penalty date. So we'll continue to try to do that, and also used Anteno app a little bit more. So always looking at ways we can try and get the information out there. But really want to let people know that we're here to help, and as long as they're communicating with them, we'll work with them. So, yeah, not a bad year.
Good. Well, congratulations. I thought actually I thought I might send around to some places the self-assessment of a good job. Well, I like that actually. I think it's a really smart idea. So well done. I agree with your self-assessment, Shelley. That's good news. So look, folks, we appreciate Shelley on her team's work this year. Yes, Rob.
Just a comment, really enjoying the continued improvement that's happening through and celebrating that. I think that's really cool. So, thank you.
I think it's good to have this discussion, by the way, in the public part of our committee, particularly around some of the challenges of collection. I'm very conscious that you said at this stage a greater proportion are in sort of the final stages of collection. It's not where we want to be. I'm conscious that if particularly you get to areas of having to use the rating powers to collect, it does tend to attract attention. So it would be good if you could, I'm sure you do, by the way, Shelley, but keep the political arm informed or aware of where particular action might be being taken, because it is sensitive in the community if you're forcing the sale of property. Elsewhere it would be, the sort of thing that makes near the front page of papers, so it would be useful to know that. Okay, look, that's really great. So well done on a great year, and I love the team approach. The team talked about the team summary, you've got a couple going on group collection, etc. That's tremendous news. Any other questions or comments at this stage for Shelley or on the report itself? Hopefully got a general sense to, and it shouldn't be just to you, well it is to you clearly, but actually also to your team, our appreciation, Shelley, and if you could pass that on, I'd be grateful. I'll move from the chair. We received Shelley's report. Thank you, Christine. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Vote against, it's carried. Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate that. Righty. So picking up on our presentation from Westpac, which is only one half of our investment strategy, with Melbourne asset management also being there. And I wonder if we could pick up on the investment.
Yes, it's my pleasure to talk about Balanced Funds Investment Review. As you remember, you've asked me in the past that before we go to invest any monies, which you've asked to be undertaken quarterly, which is roughly $5 million, that I come back to you and just provide you with some information around the market conditions and what's going on. So you'll see that this report includes that information, and it also just gives you for the first time just that update about where your fund position is. So on paragraph 22, which is page 123, you'll see those results at the end of July, which states that, we've made some good gains over that period of time. It hasn't been very long. It's been probably a couple of months at that stage. Which of course was tiered over that period. So now basically what I'm doing is just asking you whether you are happy for me to do the next instalment of the $5 million, which is $2.5 million each to your two investment companies. And I'm sorry I didn't have one of those great work well done stamps from me.
That'll become the law by now. Fair enough, I like the well done, Shelley. Good proactivity. Okay, folks, so there is a chance to review the performance, and in effect, as July would represent in effect, well, as you say, it's probably 2 months rather than 3 months, and actually hopefully Westpac gave us their view on 3 months performance versus 12 months performance of their fund, which was helpful as well. Plus also it's time to release the next tranche, for which we're seeking approval. Comments or questions? Yes, Matt.
I just want to
clarify, I think it's just a typo, but paragraph 26, just checking we're not borrowing from LGNZ, is that LBFA? Is that what that is?
God.
I know, it's
Honest to
acronyms.
God. Yes.
Because I don't.
Thank you, Matt.
Sorry.
You're right, sorry, well done.
Yeah, if they want it.
Good pickup.
You get a chocolate fish for that one.
Yeah, you
I
do.
thought I'd got over that.
Yeah, we've chocolate fish right up.
Seemingly mustn't get over things very well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments I'd like to make? Yes, Don?
Thank you, Bruce. I won't be voting in support of this. Don't want to go over it all again, but I just think it's a risk that given our debt position, I'm not sure that we should be putting money into the share market. I would note that the S&P dropped over 2% last night, so just too much risk for my liking.
Thank you, Don. Any other comments from folk? Do I have a person prepared to move the motion and second? Thank you, Sarah. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion on the motion? Put the motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against?
Aye.
So I think we should record that, Don and Jaspre. Are there any other voices I should have taken into account?
I actually abstain from voting.
And you want to abstain? Okay, thank you. And the motion is passed. I should have said probably before the motion that not this affects the motion. Thank you for organising Westpac. It probably would be good for us to repeat the exercise with Milford. And it did make me think in looking at this one, and it probably is also time for us to have a sort of like an annual check-in with Brent Jansen.
Yes, that was also
on the overall approach. You probably tell me it's in the work plan.
Yeah, it was planned for last. It was planned for the last meeting. We
Yeah.
were going to have all three of them, but
Yeah.
of course we just got overrun with other
Yeah, no, I
things.
appreciate
So I've
that.
just so I'm hoping that if I'm just got to look at our next meeting because potentially I'm thinking we've got some capacity in there. So I'll get it.
Good, if we could include, both Milford and particularly the overview of the total treasury management process we're in here, that would be good. Okay, thank you for that. Righty, could we move to the next item, please, which is, come on to, we're moving to exclusion. Actually quite a chunky session this time. We've got 5 items and you have the reasons why we should move into public exclusion. I'm comfortable with those. I'm going to move here and do so. Right, seconder please. Thank you, Christine. Is there any debate on the motion? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Vote against. Carried. Brilliant. Thank you. It's 12:15. I'm proposing we have a break at 12, but we will be tracking on as we can. I think. No, I realise that, but I'm saying we'll just be tracking on, but we will break in 12. 12:30.
Get away another half an hour. The grumbling tummy is getting pretty
No,
bad.
not at all. Okay, we'll go to 12:30 then if that's the case. Sorry, thank you for the correction.
I'll just go and grab Stuart. Thank you.